If mixing vocals gives you the heebie-jeebies and you just want something that works, a starting point you can expand on, I've got you covered. Today, I'm sharing my go-to 5 plug-in vocal chain. Just between you and me, mixing can feel like a game of whack-a-mole. Remember whack-a-mole? You smack one mole, it goes down, and 1 or 2 more pop up. That's what mixing feels like. You fix one problem, 2 more problems pop up. It's just kind of the nature of the beast, and it feels especially true with vocals, which leads people to just endlessly tweaking their vocals. And guess what? Endlessly tweaking typically means making it sound worse and worse and worse until you eventually start over and repeat the process a few times. And you're doubting every step of the process. That's not fun. That can lead people to just quitting. I don't want you to quit. So I'm going to show you a simple framework that you can apply. This can be your starting point. This can be your ending point if you just want to use these 5 plugins and call it a day. But it gives you a little bit, it's almost like having some bumpers at the bowling alley. So you at least know where you're headed. You've got some direction. You know which things you can start tweaking. But you don't have endless options because endless options typically isn't helpful. So this is going to help you stay in your lane moving towards the pin of a great vocal mix. This metaphor completely fell apart, but let's jump in. So a quick disclaimer. I hate disclaimers, but I got to do this one. I woke up with some sort of weird like fluid in my ears. Everything sounds like this. So we'll see how this demo goes. If it's not quite sounding super great, just factor that in. Everything sounds like the Charlie Brown teacher to me today. We're gonna, but the show must go on. So here we are. All right. So here is a vocal from one of my more popular songs called Fighter. And it sounds like this. Here it is in the context of the mix.
If life is one, if life is one big disappointment.
Okay, so that's just a raw vocal. Here's what it sounds like by itself.
If life is one big disappointment.
People get concerned when they hear that lyric. The lyric is, if life is one big disappointment, then maybe I'm doing things right. I know, it sounds fatalistic, but it's just like a, hey, life's disappointing. If things are going wrong sometimes, I'm probably doing some right things. Anyway, that's the idea there. But we're going to hear this line a few times, so get used to it. All right, so here are the 5 plugins of my kind of default plugin chain. Feel free to copy these and set this up in your system using your favorite plugins. Here's the overview. It looks like this. An EQ, a compressor, a de-esser, an EQ, a compressor. Multiple. What's going on here? I'll explain. The first step is redonkulously easy. Just set a high-pass filter. That's all this EQ is doing. It's rolling off everything below 20 hertz. Why? Because there's nothing good below 120 hertz on a vocal. So I may have misspoke. Everything below 120 hertz. What does everything below 120 hertz sound like? Well, I'll show you. It sounds something like this. Honestly, that's what my ear sounds like right now. So that we don't want that sound. Removing it from your vocal, it'll vary widely. This is just a good catch-all for me. If you got real close to the mic and it popped a lot and went with like your breath, this will help with that. If it's just got, there's nothing about a vocal with the exception of maybe the bass line of an a cappella vocal or somebody doing like beatboxing and you need that big kick drum sound. I never need that. I've needed that once in my life so far. So I'm good with this being my default. If you need that low end, fine. But this is, I know the preset says 100, but it's actually I feel like 120 sounds a little bit better. So to hear what this is doing, it's not doing much, but you can hear a little bit of like that of the vocal disappear with this.
If life is one big disappointment. If life is one big
It's subtle. It'll be different for everybody, but this gets us kind of on our way. So that's it. This plugin, you can set it up, close it, never open it again. Yay, we're already making progress. Next, I want to compress the vocal. So I've found if there's too much extra low end, the compressor goes a little too nutso. But I typically like to compress before I do my tone shaping with EQ, with the exception of that high-pass filter rolling off the excessive low end. So now that excessive low end won't be triggering my compressor, just all the warm, gooey mid-range will, which I kind of like the way that triggers the compressor. Here's how to set up the compressor. Now, at every step of this process, you can make this your own, but if you're the kind of person who just wants a checklist and then see how far you can go with it, I would do this. Set up your compressor like this. Attack time, 1 millisecond. Release, 80 milliseconds. Ratio, 4:1. And then turn the threshold down until the gain reduction, how much compression is happening, is somewhere around 9 decibels, let's say. And then once you get that, you're going to want to turn the makeup gain up by about 9 decibels to make up for the volume that you lost. Let's dial that in real quick.
If life is one,
Start from the top here. We'll bring the threshold down.
if life is one big disappointment.
Feels pretty good. We can see here in Studio One, it actually tells us we reduced at most by 9.5 decibels. Cool. So let's add back in about 8 or 9 dB.
If life is one big disappointment.
Now we can compare. They should be roughly the same volume, but one should be a lot more aggressive and appropriate for a vocal mix.
If life is one big disappointment.
Don't be obsessive about getting the loudness exactly right. It's just ballpark. I want it to be roughly the same volume it was before. So mission accomplished. Now, after the compressor, we're going to add in a de-esser. A de-esser just takes the sibilance that a compressor tends to emphasize and brings it down. This one is optional. If you don't hear a sibilance problem, don't use it. Let's go over to the word disappointment.
It's one big disappointment.
Okay, I turned this the wrong way.
It's one big disappointment.
The sibilance on this isn't actually that bad. I think I recorded this with a Bach Audio 251. It's like a $6,000 mic. It was pretty dark. Didn't have a lot of bright airiness to it. So it may not need any de-essing at all. But if it did, I would just pull this back until it's taming those S's. Not so far that it makes me have a lisp. So my S's sound like THs. But so far that it's not this sharp, piercing thing.
It's one big disappointment.
If you listen to some pro mixes, I was listening to, you familiar with Yola? Fantastic singer. She's got that cover of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. That is probably one of the best songs ever. But if you listen closely, you can actually hear the de-esser working on her voice. She's got this big voice. But this de-esser is just taming all those little S's. Arguably maybe a little bit too much, but you don't notice it unless you're listening for it, and then it's super obvious that every S goes, and you kind of feel it getting sucked down. That's what the de-esser is for. This one is the only one in here that may be optional. You might not need it. All right, next, this is plugin number 4 in the chain, EQ. Now this is just your standard tone shaping EQ. There are typically 3 to 4 spots that I will focus on when messing with EQ on a vocal. The first is the muddiness in the low mid-range. I'm going to set these back to their defaults. That is around 200 hertz. So 200 hertz on a vocal is good for giving you some warmth, is bad when there's too much. Right now there's too much in this one. You can hear it here.
It's one big disappointment.
It's just that woo, woo, woo. It's the thing that we call warm when we're testing out microphones. If one mic has more 200 hertz than another, then we might pick it because it's warm. It sounds like tubes, even though there's no tubes involved. We want to pull this down. Now, not so far that the vocal loses all of its body and warmth.
It's one big
but somewhere in between so that it is warm without being muddy.
It's one big disappointment. It's one big disappointment.
That feels about right. I can feel that low end, but it's not going boom, and it's not causing muddiness because a typical vocal, go listen to your favorite vocal mixes, the vocal is pretty bright. It's not as warm as you thought it was. All right, the next place I will go look is in the upper mid-range around 2.6K. I will do a narrow cut there if there's some annoying ringing, especially when the singer is singing loudly like this.
If life is...
It gets kind of nasally and gross up in here.
If life is...
So I just pull that down and it sounds smooth.
If life is one big disappointment.
The other place I will adjust is up around 10 to 12K. If it needs a little more air, I will push a little bit up there. I'm a poet and didn't even realize I was rhyming.
If life is one big disappointment.
If you do too much boosting with the air, you have to go back to the de-esser and tell it to calm down a little more. because it might be undoing what you did. This is an example of the whack-a-mole nature of mixing.
If life is one big disappointment.
It's probably too much in the S's. I'm going to pull that back down. I don't think this vocal needs it, but that's what I would do if the vocal needed a little extra airiness, air on top. And then the final piece, this is my favorite piece. This is what I call butter compression. Take another compressor and set it like this. You're going to set the ratio 1:1. Sorry, first let's do attack and release. Attack 30 milliseconds, release 30 milliseconds. This is at the end of your chain. You're going to set the threshold all the way down. All the way down. And then you're going to hit play. And you're going to just turn up the ratio until you get about 5 dB of gain reduction. This is like a smooth, always-on compressor that just puts the final little tightness, I don't know what that whistle was, tightness on the vocal that works really well. So I'm going to do this. It probably only needs to get to about 1.2 to 1. We're going to do this till we get about 5 dB of gain reduction. Then we'll use makeup gain again to make up for that, and we'll see how it sounds.
If life is one big disappointment, then maybe I'm doing this thing right.
It just gives it that, by itself you might say, oh, it's a little too squish, but then you drop it into the mix and the vocal's just sitting right there, hanging out exactly where it needs to be.
If life is one big disappointment, then maybe I'm doing this thing right.
A little too much sibilance now. Let's go pull some of that down here now that we hear it in context.
If life is one big disappointment, then maybe I'm doing...
That's the chain. That is the vocal plug-in chain that I like to use. That's my starting point. Every mix might be a little bit different. We might change things, add things, take things away. Once we've got them all in, we might go back and adjust settings as we go a little bit to kind of massage it into place. But that is a great starting point. If you don't have a starting point and you feel like you're playing whack-a-mole and just randomly adding plugins and twisting knobs, do this instead. See how it works for you. Or you might have known this was coming. This is the way I've been mixing vocals, a variation of this. It's constantly evolving, but a variation of this over the years. And I finally said, I'm going to make a plugin that does all of this plus a little bit more for me. Honestly, selfishly making it for myself to make vocal mixing easier. So instead of having 5 plugins, let's get rid of all these. Remove all. I can have one plugin that does all of this plus a little extra under the hood. That one plugin is my new plugin called Gilder. You can check it out at gildervox.com. Currently, as I shoot this video, there's a free 14-day trial, so you can literally check it out before having to pay anything. But this does everything I showed you, plus a little bit more, and it's hard to make this thing sound bad. So I'm going to dial in a similar vocal tone with that same track we just used. I just removed all the plugins. Let's see how we can make it sound.
If life is one big disappointment, then maybe I'm...
Man, that...
Then maybe...
This smoother is about to take care of that.
Then maybe I'm doing this thing right.
And it could use a little more brightness, I think, now. Maybe a little less mud, a little more brightness.
Then maybe I'm doing this thing right. But if this all points to something bigger, then I'll get back up
and because I love, that's the core, that's it, that's the sound.
Then maybe I'm doing this thing right.
Maybe a little more sibilance, a little less sibilance on top. But on top of this, I added in a couple of extras. So if you want to add some distortion to the sound,
then maybe I'm doing this thing right.
My favorite is to add a little bit of drive and then a little more air, because the drive makes it a little darker.
Then maybe I'm doing this thing right.
And then, of course, my favorite vocal effect of all time, slap back delay, so I baked it into the sound. Let's go back to the first line.
If life is one big disappointment, then maybe I'm doing this thing right. But if this all points to...
If you like the idea of a simple single plugin with a handful of knobs that does all of those jobs for you and sounds great, I'd love for you to come check out Gildervox. Just go to gildervox.com to check it out. Check out these reviews I just got recently. Here's an email somebody sent. Said, Joe, I'm not a big email writer, but I thought I should say thanks for removing a couple of more years of indecision with that chain of effects for vocals. Because as soon as I adjusted your new plugin, I heard the sound I've been fruitlessly chasing. Seems too easy now. Big thanks. George mixed a few vocals. Jeremy said he got a polished vocal tone in less than a minute. There were a couple more here. Josh just said, take my money. Anyway, go check it out. See for yourself if this can be your next vocal plugin chain. And if you want to hear more about the plugin, check out my most recent video, which introduces the plugin, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. See ya.